As we start the second video introduction to the module, it makes me nervous because, believe it or not, we are 25% of the way through the course already. And it seems like I just learned your names yesterday. So anyway, this is the most structured module you're going to see. Again, you heard my comment in the first one, being a sociologist, and there's a guy to whom I am not related. If any of you understand sociology, you've heard the name Talcott Parsons. When I was a student many moons ago, they said, "Do you know him? Is he your uncle?" No, and even if I was, I would disown him because he's a very strange dude. But he's a big analyst looking at the structure. What's the interaction between structure and function? And it's what we're going to look at today. So rather than starting with the text, I will start with the slides. They're a bit longer than I usually make them, only because what you have in those slides is a very handy construct that you can use to lay out in your mind or put it away somewhere, and maybe something you'll be able to use a part of in your synthesis project of how whatever yours actually goes together. By the next time we talk, I should know about at least half and maybe 2/3 of what kinds of projects you're going to be doing, because time is literally screaming away from us. But anyway, it's very good. And part of the reason I put this module in, besides the need for the structure, is one of the things you discover, and this always bothered me. Many of the instructors that I had, and I've been a professional student, I've gone to, if you read that little baby bio that I had, you know I've been to school all over the place, including having gone to school in England for a while. Actually Scotland for a very short time. But one of the things that I discovered is that about 3/4 of the teachers that I've had, they have been away from what it is they're teaching for quite a long time. And that's important because, as you well know, if you've been in any time at all in education and looking at your mini bios, most of you have, you know how rapidly education changes. And this transition from one presidential administration and its view of education to a second has made some very real structural changes, which are now beginning to have meaningful functions for a lot of you. So anyway, use those slides as they are set up. The text is very thorough. It's a little bit dry, but it's because the gentlemen who've written it, it's in its, I believe, second edition, have done the kind of work that is contained in that text. They may know it, they primarily seem to come from the Chicago area. And so they're probably showing you what you see. And I spent a very short time with some folks in Chicago, actually twice. Once when I still was in Michigan, and once since I've been here in Maryland. So they're a little bit structured. I'm trying to break that down so that you will see some of what the difference is. And one of the things that I have asked, a role I've asked you folks to play a little bit later, is this business about being an assessor, an evaluator, an accreditor. All those terms are kissing cousins, if you will. I've been lucky to have been on, if my memory serves, 19 different accrediting teams in the Middle States Association, and I did a great number of them, which was very interesting. I did a number as an accreditor for the Association of Colleges of Asian Medicine. Now, what do I know about Asian medicine? Very little. Why did they have me? Because they want to eventually become accredited, whether they're in Middle States, North Central. Actually, I'm very pleased that on one of those accrediting visits, that school, after we finished with them, they learned enough and they made enough changes that they were the first of the 65 of those schools in this country that to get one from one of the regional accrediting associations. They're down in Austin, Texas, and they got their accreditation from the Southern Association. So we did something right. Now, the most important part of this particular unit. How am I really going to get you linked into the practical part? You know a lot yourself, and never discount what you know. I've asked you several times in the syllabus, draw on your own experience. It has value, it has merit. But from what I've read thus far in your bios and the papers you've sent me, a number of you are at a good jumping off point, at a launch point, if you will, to become involved in budget and finance. You may not become a chief fiscal officer. So far, I've only had 2 students in all the time I've taught this course who are likely to do that. One I had last summer from the Urban Ed program, who I suspect will eventually be a chief fiscal officer because he really knew his stuff. We had a lot of fun. He brought things in and actually helped some of the other students. So the thing that I'm mostly concerned about now is identify someone who you can interview. The person can have business responsibility, can have finance responsibility. I know that at least one of you is involved with resource development for the school. Talk to somebody in your institution that does that. The one that you can use, and it's not completely the way I see the world. I've asked several friends in my part of Maryland, is personnel under the aegis of your fiscal office. And it's about 50-50. Where I've been, it hasn't been. It's been under either a dean or a vice president for institutional services. They would get a lot of things. They would get facilities, they would get general maintenance, and there would be actually a personnel individual. So pick the individual and have your interview. Look at the material that's on the syllabus. I suspect most of you know about the Purdue OWL system. There's good stuff in there. In fact, there's a hot link in your syllabus that brings that up to you so that you can put it together. And keep track of that because that's something that will be of great use to you when you write your final synthesis paper. Not a whole lot more I need to say about this particular unit because you already have a pretty good start. But I'm going to conclude with something that I've used a number of times. The closer you get to this final synthesis paper, and I know I'm Johnny One Note, I talk about it all the time, but it is worth a good bit of your grade in this course. Remember the old African proverb. The one young African asks a more experienced older chieftain, "Well, sir, how do you eat an elephant?" And the chief looks at him, strokes his beard, and says, "One bite at a time." So don't try to do the entire system. You're now, when you've seen this one, you're 50% of the way through the course. You're getting into the second 25%. When you talk to your individual, don't try to cover the entire elephant. Talk about just what you need from that individual's expertise so that you can make it, so you can knit this all together in a very efficient fashion. Okay, the other thing that I always say at this time, and most of the time, you know people because you are working in various aspects of the system that you can talk to. But if for some reason you're having trouble finding someone to interview, please let me know. I've gone ahead and I've talked to people in higher ed. I've talked to people in the K-12 program at Morgan. And I have people who promise to make themselves available for you by telephone. If you want to use Skype or something, that's fine too. Don't impose yourself on them. Hey, you need to make the interview. They will know because I've given them the information and I'll give it to you. They will know what you're doing, but they maybe they're excited about what they do. It's not very often that folks who are working in that finance area, they talk to presidents, they talk to superintendents, they talk to deputy superintendents for instruction or student services or vice presidents or provosts in higher ed. Though while those people are equally important, they don't get the interview. At several schools where I practiced what I do, some of my colleagues would complain about these folks who were in the finance area. They didn't like them. They didn't think that they were as, shall we say, competent as they are. But I remind them, they are the only senior leaders, whether it's K-12, community college or higher, they're the only ones that get an external evaluation by experts, licensed experts in the field, every year. Most of us do something, we may have to turn in a piece of paper with numbers on it. In a year, every 5 years, we turn in what's called a bench audit to middle states, whether you're K-12 or the other. And every 10 years, a team may come and visit you. But every year, there is an audit review of all the financial activity of your system, whatever your system is. And they have to stand before the Board of Trustees, school board members, whatever they're called. They stand before them, and the chief auditor stands there, and the spotlight is turned right on your chief fiscal officer. So give them some credit for the hard work that they do. Okay, that gives you our second video. It won't go up for a while because I don't want to get too far ahead of you, but right now you're moving along well. I'm excited for you, excited to be with you, and keep up the good work.